Son of a bitch.
Groovy.
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Thinner, a 1996 movie that is based on a Stephen King story that has completely flown under the radar in my view, as has the story itself. I never hear people talking about this movie. As far as I can tell, there are very few people who seem to even know that it exists, and I think that's a bit of a shame because it is an entertaining film, but at the same time, it's not a miscarriage of justice by any stretch of the imagination because it's not great either. It's a movie that is worth seeing in my view, but not one that's very memorable. But either way, I figure I'd sit down and talk to you about it and let you know about it. For those of you who haven't heard of it, which again I'm assuming is probably the vast majority, it focuses on a lawyer, and you get introduced to him early on in the film, and you find out that he's representing a mobster who's played by Joe Mantegna, who's one of the only recognizable faces in this film, and he gets him off, and he seems to be perfectly happy with that. He decides to go out one night for a ride with his wife in celebration of this momentous event, and on the drive, his wife and him get a little frisky, shall we say. And while she's getting frisky again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here. He gets distracted, and he ends up hitting this older woman. And turns out that she's a gypsy, and her father, despite the fact that she's old, still is alive, and he's played by an actor who a lot of people will recognize as being the father in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And he gets infuriated that this happened to his daughter, and he decides to get revenge. And he has another relative, this younger woman, who also has just absolutely hates this lawyer. And in one pivotal scene in the film, he goes up to him and he brushes his hand, and he just says the word thinner. And at the time, you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of funky. You don't really know what it's about if you haven't seen the film. But as it turns out, throughout the rest of the movie, he progressively gets thinner and thinner, no matter what he does, no matter how much he eats. People at one point, his wife thinks that it might be that he has cancer, but at the same time, at first, they're very happy that he's losing all this weight because he is such a big guy. And that's one of the major flaws of this film, is the look he has when he is overweight looks extremely fake. I mean, it is abundantly clear that they took an actor who was not necessarily skinny, but a regular looking dude, and they made him put on a fat suit in order to try to, and it looks pretty fake, but whatever, you gotta move past that. So at first, he's happy that he's losing all this weight, and then as time goes on, they get alarmed. They think he might have cancer. They start looking into it, and he keeps losing weight, and he starts to get very, very sick, and feel like his life is in danger. And then he goes and he's thinking about the fact that that old man did that to him. And one of the major key parts of this film is he doesn't get justice when he gets taken to court because he killed the lady, and because he is a lawyer and he knows the judge and he knows the local law enforcement, they basically let him off with a slap on the wrist. And so as the film progresses, you find out the old man did something similar to the judge and the sheriff, or whatever, the head of the law enforcement. And to one of them, he says lizard, and you end up seeing him, and his skin is completely changed. It looks like he's basically becoming a lizard, and that leads to his death. And another guy, he says leper, and he starts like having these boils and then skin falling off and all that, and he ends up killing himself. And throughout the film, the guy who's progressively getting thinner becomes more and more desperate to try to avert his undoing, and that's basically the story of the film. At the end, you see him trying to convince the old man to take away the curse, and you see how that whole thing plays out. It was an interesting concept. That to me is the core of the film, especially as obviously I'm a bigger guy myself, and the idea of losing weight is very appealing to me. But to see a main character that is absolutely tortured by losing weight, especially because early on he's so excited, that is something I could absolutely relate to. If I was dropping pounds like that, like crazy, I'd be like, oh, this is awesome. And then before too long, you'd start to be like, oh, what the heck is going on here? And so that whole part of it really, really speaks to me. And at the end of the day, I gotta be honest with you, I'm not sure that this movie would speak to very many other people that aren't overweight, and that's kind of an interesting thing to me, because that's one of the major things that really made me invest in it. But I'd love to hear anybody who's seen this movie that isn't overweight, to hear what they thought if they invested in his whole story just because he's the main character, or if they found him a lot less relatable than I did. But overall, I mean, it's not a bad movie, not a movie that I would rush out to see by any stretch of the imagination. But you know, if you're flipping around and it's on TV, which I don't think that's going to happen, but let's just say theoretically, or you have a streaming service that pops up, or you stream things. To me, it's an interesting watch. So those are my thoughts on Thinner. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, if you're a fan, if you've ever heard of it. And again, like I said, if you have seen it and you're thinner, or maybe not even thinner, but not overweight like myself, if you were able to relate to the main character as much as I did, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people will come check out this review and let me know what they think, which would be awesome, because I love talking to people about movies. And speaking of which, if you're new here or you just haven't done it yet, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you can find out when I put out a new video and come give me your thoughts. Other than that, have yourself a good day.